Well, with 3 games to go in the AFL footy season, we are at the pointy end, I guess. Welcome to another fun-filled edition of Titus and Sergio Variety Hour podcast. I'm Sergio Paradise, and here is a bloke who hasn't had his feet chewed off by sea lice. It's Titus O'Reilly.
For those that didn't see it, there was this guy who went to Port Phillip Bay and came out with his ankles all bleeding.
His lower legs were just covered in blood and they wouldn't stop bleeding. A 16-year-old kid.
Sea lice, they reckon.
Sea lice, I reckon, were chewing on him. I was hoping it was going to be some Brighton piranhas.
Oh, yeah, they're often... Melbourne's known for its tropical nature.
Yeah, and most of the piranhas around Brighton work in real estate, you know.
Well, in Queensland, you've got the bull sharks.
Yes, and up further north, you've got the
stingers.
The stingers, the jellyfish, the box jellyfish.
Yeah, we forget that nature is basically trying to kill us.
Yeah, but Australia's good for that
but
sort of stuff.
But we're winning.
But sea lice, that's a new one. That's a new one on me.
Yeah, a terrible one that gets in your hair. We should start. We should mention right up.
Off the top.
We want to thank our supporters, everyone who's become a supporter of the podcast.
Yes.
You too can become a supporter. Yes, you listening to this right now. It helps us keep this going, stops us having to go back to crime,
real employment, or
go back to
it was
our gang lifestyle.
I was about to say our thug lifestyle. Once we got it, it's harder, we found, to get out of the Apex gang than to get into it.
Can you imagine? Oh, beautiful Melbourne, home of the Apex gang. So we want to thank our supporters, and if you want to become a supporter, go to titusoreilly.com and there is a supporter thing there. You can do monthly or yearly donation, and you can get sent out a T-shirt or a mug, depending on what level you get, and you also get things like we had early tickets for the tour.
The live tour, yes.
But for instance, I've got my book coming out later in the year, and I'll be doing a really good deal for anyone who's a supporter, and
there you
probably be signing the copies for those people and giving them a discount. So, that could encourage you.
Have you
I don't know.
practiced the Titus O'Reilly signature?
What do you mean practice?
I mean, I know it comes naturally to you.
Yeah, that's right. It's just an X.
It's like S Paradise on my checks. I still have a checkbook.
Do you?
Yeah.
Why?
Oh, I don't know why. I'm an old-fashioned kind of guy.
I thought you only worked in cash. Like a Carlton football administrator.
Yeah. No, I have found the good thing about checks is that when they bounce, it gives you another week or so to find the money.
That makes sense now. That's what your bookie no longer takes your checks. We should also mention the tour, the bi-week tour, which is coming up the end of this month. August 31st, Thursday is the first one in Melbourne, and then we do Sydney, Perth, Adelaide, Canberra and Brisbane.
And Brizzy, the final night of the tour. Gee, we're going to go off that night. Oh. The final one. We're going to trash the joint.
So that's in Brizzy, isn't it? So that's going to be, look out Brisbane.
After that gig, I think there'll be TVs going out hotel room windows. You're going to drive a Rolls Royce into the swimming pool.
I'll probably just fall asleep.
Yeah, probably. We get a couple of beers sent up to the room, then it'll be it.
No, so it should be good. So if you haven't got a ticket already, for quite a few of those events, the Brisbane one's only been on sale a couple of weeks, but it's selling well. The others, like Canberra, Melbourne, others, we're sort of getting into the last about a third of tickets left.
Okay.
And then we found last year they tend to go really quick towards the end because suddenly people go, oh, yeah, we might actually go to that.
Yeah.
So if you want to get tickets, you can go to Frontier Touring /Titus O'Reilly, and I'll put the link in the show notes. So we'd love to see people there. It should be fun. We should mention yesterday and the footy. Not yesterday, over the weekend. It was a big weekend of footy for the Eight, Serge.
Yeah, wow, what a big week it has been in football.
We saw two things that were kind of interesting. One was the Swans absolutely dominating Geelong without Dangerfield.
And
but then Joel Selwood goes out with an ankle, and boy, were the Channel 7 commentary team dark on that.
Oh, yeah, they were, weren't they? Didn't they go right off?
They cut so often to first the thing is, and it's amazing. I used to think I was imagining it. Yeah. And then there's sort of, once you think something, there's confirmation bias. But I know I'm not alone in this because, you go on Twitter and it's...
Yep.
The love of Geelong and Hawthorn by the Channel 7 commentary team is astounding, is it not?
Oh.
Do you notice that as
well?
well?
Yeah. I mean, apparently you got to preface saying this about anyone involved in the football industry, but apparently he's a really good bloke. But Cameron Ling, I cannot come at Lingy as a commentator or special comments man.
Yeah.
He reminds me of Cliff Claven on Cheers. Remember? He would state the obvious, but know everything.
Yeah. Says it like it's incredibly insightful.
Yeah, insightful, but it's just the stating the bleeding obvious.
I know, and I thought he was brave to keep going after Selwood went down and not just fold it in. He was pretty not happy.
Oh, that was tough. Yeah.
When Selwood went down, the thing that amazed me about this is Selwood went off, obviously with the ankle injury before half time. He then came back out for most of the third quarter, didn't play much of the fourth. And then Geelong come out and announce that night, basically, or was it not that night, by the end of the weekend, they come out and announce that he's going to miss the rest of the regular season and possibly the finals
as well.
too. And you start to go, well, why was he let back out?
Well, I heard Joel Selwood himself kind of try to explain this by saying, I pinged my ankle early on, which is why I went off. Yeah. But it wasn't too bad. But it was the second one that I did. The second time I did it did all the damage, and it didn't ring true. It just did not ring true.
It's I'm no doctor, but
a doctor of philosophy.
I'm no doctor, but it sounds to me like neither of the Geelong medical staff. They just said
any idea.
This is like when Melbourne tried to pass off Jack Trengove to Richmond, and Richmond came back and said, "You do know he's got broken foot."
Yes.
And they went, "Oh, really?"
All his arches completely dropped out of his ankle.
And they went, "Oh, really? That's a surprise."
So what do you make of it? Geelong without Selwood, okay, they'll get Danger back, but no, without Selwood,
there's no way.
They're gone. I think they're gone.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe Joel Selwood should go down to Brighton Beach and just stand in the cold water for a while.
Get the sea lice.
Get the sea lice happening.
You think you still subscribe to like the bleeding, like the leeches is your sort of modern. That's where you are on medicine.
See, it's like I'd like to reintroduce. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Tree panning for concussion. Remember, that's when they used to drill a hole in the skull to let the evil spirits out.
Yeah, right. You think that's how you fix it?
I think that might work.
And then just walk it off.
Yeah.
I think you're right there.
And then wear a helmet when you come back through the seconds.
There's not enough drilling in the skull. And you could get a sponsor, get Bunnings on board or Home Hardware. This
go where the tradies go.
And the backyard doctors.
But I still reckon the sea lice might be the go.
Yeah,
so I'm going to put some in my pool for when the relatives come around.
Yeah, stop them coming in.
That'll be fun on Christmas Day.
I think Geelong looked terrible without Dangerfield. It was really quite something. And then you think without Selwood, it just makes it. You can just focus more on Dangerfield. But look, there's Dangerfield on his own is still pretty damaging. That's sort of been what they've relied on all year. But let's see. One thing that struck me as incredibly interesting is two streakers we had in this event over the weekend, two different games. You don't see a streak as much as you once did because the fines now are about $8,000 or $10,000.
I've looked this up.
Of course you have.
You know what?
This is like when someone knows too much about age of consent laws.
Yeah.
Like instead of coming across as an expert, it's a bit creepy. And here you are going, "Oh, I know this."
I've gone a bit Cliff Claven myself right here. Now, you know what the fine is for running onto the G? $9,367.60.
Oh, it's the 60 cents that kills you.
And you know why that is? Because it's obviously not just a rounded number like a $9,000 or $8,000 or 10.
Yeah.
It was set by the state government a few years ago of 60 penalty units.
Yeah, and that's always linked to a dollar a figure,
and the penalty unit is $155.46.
Yeah, and they always tweak the penalty.
So 60 times that adds up to your
So that's a fair chunk of change.
Absolutely, just to run out there. And I think that the MCG streak yesterday, he wasn't even fully nude.
Well, you know why I reckon he wasn't fully nude?
Why?
Because as we learned a few weeks ago, mooning in Victoria is now legal.
And
Remember
that's
that?
a bigger penalty.
And you can go to jail.
That's a bigger penalty than running onto the G.
Yeah, you can go to jail for repeat offences of mooning.
Yeah, I'm glad they're across all the important things
Well,
here in Victoria.
the other one was in the Showdown as
I
well.
didn't see that one. Was that Greg Norman? He's been getting around without the pants a bit lately.
Well, if it was Greg Norman, he would have tripped over the fence and not even made it onto the ground. She would have choked at the last minute. It's a big fine now as well.
Yeah.
If that wasn't amusing enough, did you watch Collingwood play? I'm making it sound more like a real game than it was, but did you see Collingwood and North Melbourne have a go at playing football on Saturday night?
I did watch a fair bit of it.
It was the worst game of the season.
It was a shocker. It was an absolute shocker. It was like going back 5 or 6 years, like see when Gold Coast in their first season playing against a crap team like Melbourne or something. You just could not believe that those 36 players on the ground were good enough to make it to the AFL.
It reminded me of if you made people play a sport against their will, and a sport they'd never heard of
played
before.
Or they had a crack at.
And there was the general sense of everyone was playing like so uncoordinatedly.
Yeah.
Like they looked like they weren't athletes, and the fact that there were so many injuries. I wasn't surprised that they weren't all ended up injured because they were all like bumping into each other.
And the clangers and the turnovers and just the completely witless attempts at moving the ball and not even to a teammate. And that was both sides.
Oh, yeah. How Collingwood then belted North.
Yeah, it should have been.
It made me think, how did Melbourne lose to North the week
twice.
before?
Yeah, we lost to North twice.
God, it was bad.
It should have been a 0-0 draw. If it had been a game of soccer, a 0-0 draw would have been a fair result.
Oh, one thing I saw, and I can't remember who it was, sorry, but it was the tweet of the night about this. Someone wrote, I'm going to record this game to show the next time people are bagging the AFLW for its skill level.
Oh, yeah, I think I saw that.
And I was thinking, that's spot on, because anyone that makes out like the men's game is always a beautiful thing. This was just horrendous.
Yeah, it was.
It was the first time ever on a Saturday night sitting home watching the footy, I thought, gee, I wish I'd invested in a social life.
Yeah.
And not be here watching
Could
this
have gone
nonsense.
out for dinner with friends if I had any. It would have been good.
If I'd been so inclined. Yeah. Dread Pirate Roberts wrote in, Matthew Dellavedova was at the Collingwood North Melbourne game. Did you know he had a basketball background?
Matthew Dellavedova, does he?
He's got a basketball background.
And you know the other thing in that game, they had Scott Pendlebury was in the commentary box. And he was talking about other players having basketball backgrounds.
Wasn't he was a revelation as a commentator. Not in a good way.
Pendles.
Not in a good way.
I'm not sure he'd be going to the media in a hurry.
No.
He probably doesn't want to.
Well, I think why would he be doing that, though, if he doesn't? He doesn't have look, the bar is so low.
Yeah.
Judging, appointing commentators based on footballing ability.
Yeah.
Just it's like picking footballers based on basketball ability. It just inherently doesn't. Yeah. They don't correlate in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, yeah.
They keep doing it.
Yeah. Whenever somebody says, he'll go straight into the media. My immediate answer is Campbell Brown. And I'm supporting them in their argument. It just proves that anyone can get into the footy
Remember when
media.
Campbell Brown used to go on that Q&A type show that Karl Stefanovic was trying to get up?
Yeah, that lasted about 3 weeks.
3 weeks, and it was, and the weird thing about it was, the quality of the guests was so bad that Campbell Brown didn't come across as out of his depth.
No, exactly. I remember years when he was playing for Hawthorn before he went north. He got arrested. There's a 7-Eleven in Glenfrey Road just around the corner from the Hawthorn, what used to be their training ground, Glenfrey Oval. And he went in there late one night and he was full of ink and he had no cash. So he's gone up to the ATM and he obviously forgot his PIN number because it swallowed his card.
Right.
So what did he do? He headbutted the ATM and smashed it. And as soon as I thought that, surely you'll end up in the media.
Yeah, that's it.
So, well, I don't know how we got on to Campbell.
Pendlebury's not a... and I've met Pendlebury once and had to interview him once, and he was fine, and he might be... And it's like a lot of things. You can be perfectly good as a person chatting away, but you kind of got to have a bit of a personality, and Pendlebury's not a big personality.
No,
That's not saying he doesn't have a personality, but he's just not a big personality.
Well, you've never
he's
seen
very
much of him.
monotone and very straight.
I mean, he's been Collingwood's best player for years, but you've never really seen him, perform in a media sense, and that's what you've got to do. Whether you go on a footy show or the footy show or front bar, you name it, whatever TV or radio or medium. You have to amplify that personality a bit and get it across. And, I can't see Pendlebury doing that.
No.
And you weren't overly impressed with his efforts the other night?
No, I mean, look, it's hard doing TV, and it was the first time he'd done it and all that stuff. But it was more just, he doesn't strike me as an easy fit.
No. See, the one thing that often works, I think, using current players or recently retired players in the media, whether they're good performers or not, or whether they last or not, is that they can sometimes tell you things that you don't know that you don't see because you haven't played at that level. And even like half the commentators who have been there for decades, they still haven't played in 2016 or 2017. And that's where some of these guys can bring a bit to the table.
Well, what I find interesting when you hear a lot of them, I love when they go, like Bruce will say, Lingy, what would you do here? And then Lingy gives his views, and you go, hang on, Lingy's never even coached.
No.
Like, he's never... Do you know what I mean? But they all talk... which is where, actually, I think Paul Roos has been good in the media and a couple of the other, ex-coaches at least. You're at least going, well, at least you've been in these situations,
Well, see, this is what happens all the time here. I say, Titus, what would you do in this situation? And you've never been there either.
What, as in coach?
No, as in doing a podcast.
Now, one of the things that did happen, the notable things that happened in the Collingwood North game,
the only interesting thing
was Brodie Grundy tackling Ben Brown into the ground, knocking him out. He got stretchered off. Now, for those who didn't see it, it was a bit like the Dangerfield one where he pinned his arm and slung him pretty hard headfirst into the ground.
Yeah. Well, he didn't like spear tackle him. He went down body horizontal, but his head did bounce fairly hard.
Did you think it was a...
Look, I'm like, I guess, a lot of people on this one, in two minds. I mean, we're always taught that pinning the arms is the best way to tackle a guy because it stops him handballing. That's why you see all the players these days, from good juniors right through the AFL, as soon as they're about to get pinged, they lift their arms so they're free to tackle.
But do you think it's more when what they look for the match review is not so much if you ping their arms, fine, but then you have to be very careful in not adding any momentum in bringing them to the ground. If there's any slinging motion...
Yeah. See, in junior footy now, the sling tackle is completely outlawed, whether you pin the arms or not.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of talk at AFL level a few years ago about, the so-called sling tackle.
But that would make sense. I mean, this makes sense to me in that it might be borderline sometimes when people think, that's a little hard done by. But when it comes to concussion and brain injuries, the AFL can't win except by being over the top on it.
Yeah, well, they're a bit over the top on it.
But I think that's okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing because it has now become totally sort of dependent on the outcome of the tackle.
Yeah.
Because... as a number of players and coaches and boffins have said over the weekend, there's 30 tackles like that a game, but it's only the one that he gets hurt that he gets pinged for.
But do you reckon there really are 30 like that a game?
Probably not that many, but there's plenty of good tackles where the arms are pinned. But
it's driving the head into the ground.
Often when the arms are pinned, it's when a player runs another player down from behind, and they sort of can drag them down, and that's your classic holding the ball manoeuvre.
But I think if you don't, it is a contact sport and players are going to get hurt. Right? So I'm not saying we should change that, but I think if you in the tackle don't are not perceived to add any extra force, you'll be fine. It's when it appears like you've done the sling or, or really driven
you
them
haven't
into
just dispossessed him or stopped his momentum.
Yeah, or rode him down, but just with the normal momentum of your
slam him into the ground.
Yeah, and that's what it looked like.
And see, the other thing about the Ben Brown one the other day is it was at Etihad. And you got to remember that there's only about 8 or 9 inches of dirt and grass above concrete.
Yeah, you might as well just be slamming him.
It's like a wrestler going into the turnbuckle.
Nathan, one thing that really got me, you had Matthew Lloyd came out and wanted him to be Grundy to be cleared, as well as former Bulldog Richmond player Nathan Brown. So instantly I was like, well, he should go then.
Yeah. Especially Brownie.
That convinced me more than anything.
Yeah, do the odds, Brownie, and leave the proper
He was
discussion
one
there.
they said we're going to have a big media career and never really has kicked on. He does a lot of gambling stuff.
Yeah, he just does sports bet stuff now, does the odds.
Yeah.
But I think he does the Sunday morning footy show on Channel 9. But he's never, I guess, made it to the big league. Like the
Not
Thursday
like Cameron
night footy
Ling.
show. Yeah.
He doesn't barrack enough in
or
games.
Cameron Brown.
Buckley came out and said it was the perfect tackle.
Yeah, and you saw Brad Scott's reaction to that too. He just burst out laughing and rolled the eyes. So, as I say, it's one of those ones that's
a bit kind of like reaching sometimes you get caught or you're in trouble with something. And you can defend yourself to a point, but you can overreach.
Yeah.
So to say, look, I thought it was a clumsy tackle, but legal, people would have gone, because... But to say, no, it was the perfect tackle.
Oh, exactly. I mean, if Bucks had said described it in either of those ways, or, look, I thought it was a good tackle, but it was unfortunate that...
and that's going to happen sometimes.
That happens.
There's no malice or intent.
Yeah, it's a tough game.
It's a shame that you can't knock out your opponent anymore.
Yeah.
Where is the world going to?
Oh, you look back at... I think I've still got a VHS tape at home of the sensational 70s and the awesome 80s or something.
Hits.
They show all the hits.
And they promote it.
They're on YouTube. Have a look at them. It is just astounding what used to go on.
There's a lot of things you can't do these days that were the simple pleasures for me growing up. Yeah. They were mooning.
Yeah.
Gone.
Yeah, gone.
Knocking a bloke out on the footy field.
Yeah.
Gone.
Yeah.
Sleeping with your staff.
Gone.
Gone.
All the best.
What can you do?
The traditional great parts of football are gone.
There's nothing you can do anymore. That's it's a nanny state, sir.
It is a nanny state. It's political correctness gone mad. I'll tell you, if you do look at some of those great hits on YouTube, just search for Ray Card / Alex Jezelenko. It's one of the greatest hits of all time.
You know the one thing when everyone talks about footy being soft and all that now and all that sort of stuff, you go and look back at those hits, and you go, how was this ever seen as okay? Because some of it is just, it's not like even, it's not two guys squaring. Like, in ice hockey, it's often two guys squaring up and punching on.
And they're all covered in pads and gloves.
But they're also both aware of it. A lot of this was just belting blokes when they're not looking. Like, absolutely.
Or see,
what we'd call now absolute coward punches. Like, they weren't tough. There was
coward punches and there was just lining a guy up and running through him when he's not wearing... Which you look back and you hear the commentary from some of those and you go... That was the perfect shirt front. You don't hear that anymore.
And the ball's like up the other end of the field.
The ball's 40 metres away and the bloke had no idea somebody's coming.
Yeah. And you can't look at that and go, how is this thought of as okay?
Yeah.
But then I think, maybe I'm soft.
Well, we are soft, but the game now is as tough physically as it's ever been.
That's the thing.
And I'll argue with anyone who reckons it's soft these days. Just go and sit on the fence.
You'll argue with anyone. You'll set aside time.
I'll argue with anyone. I'll hit anyone. I'll be prepared to shirt front anyone.
When they're not looking. I'll hit anyone who disagrees with me when they're not looking. The thing about it is now the players are so fast and fit.
Yeah.
That if they just tackle you or run into you, and they would kill those guys from the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, Don't
Lee
sit on the
Matthews
grandstand.
said that.
Yeah.
He said, he was saying,
sit on the fence or close to the fence at any AFL game.
How loud it is.
And hear the bodies hit, and you won't reckon it's soft then.
Oh, no, it's hard as anything.
No.
Shannon Anthony Hall wrote in, should Brodie Grundy's punishment for the Ben Brown tackle be that he has to sit chained in a room and watch the replay of the North versus Collingwood game? Surely this sort of punishment would clean up our game overnight. Spot on.
Yeah, he's spot on. But you know what I like about Shannon's question there? He suggested that Brodie Grundy, he should be chained in a room.
Yeah.
Not just locked in a room or put in a room. Chained. Shackled.
I think you need to be to sit through the whole thing.
Yeah, he should be in one of those orange jumpsuits with the shackles.
Well, he needs to be like in Clockwork Orange where they're holding open the eyes.
Yes.
So you can't blink. Because otherwise you just look away. That's how I felt like I was chained.
It was a shocker.
Did you watch the Showdown?
Didn't see the Showdown. I was at a junior footy.
You and your grassroots footy. It was a terrible game. For people who did watch it, would know. Adelaide were just from the very start.
Yeah.
Well, at one point it was about 24-8.
Yeah.
In the first quarter, but Adelaide were kicking so badly for goal. They missed some really.
Been, 48
it should have been like 50-8. It was just unbelievable. Like the dominance of Adelaide was just huge, and then it was like the power. They just a bit like you see where
come to play.
They just weren't there. They weren't.
Is that bad for Ken Hinkley? Is he going to survive? Do you think?
It's funny because I looked this before we came on air. They're fifth on the ladder.
Yeah.
But they didn't look like a fifth on the ladder team. Like they're it seemed like yesterday, like almost a season-ending loss. Like you look at it and go, who are they going to trouble in the finals?
Oh, it's a bit like Melbourne. I mean, 3 weeks ago, premiership favourites. Now are struggling to make the finals.
Melbourne have beat Adelaide, and they've actually, they're looking very tired now. Melbourne, and they sort of reflect some of the younger players have just dropped off a cliff in the last few weeks. So I don't think they're going to go super far this year, but at least they had some moments where you went, oh, they could challenge if they got hot at the right time. But Port haven't got hot all year.
I was about to say, how have they set up 4th, 5th all year?
Where they've been great is they've beaten every bad team they've faced, or borderline.
Yeah,
they've done a good job of that.
Most other clubs have been upset a few times along the journey by a lower club.
Yeah,
Port haven't.
You look at them. Right. They won that one against St Kilda on the death pretty much, and so that got them up above them. And so there's a few, but it was a terrible, and it was hilarious because you could just see the Crows fans were just loving it.
Oh yeah.
And the Power fans were just sitting there going.
I reckon there would have been a few blues in the car park afterwards.
Yeah, there wasn't even a slight.
Because the Port fans, they don't take that well.
No.
And the Crows supporters would be giving it to them.
I'm going over to Port Collingwood next week.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm speaking before the game.
Oh.
So that should be fun. So hello, Port fans. I think you're wonderful.
Port and Collingwood.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh. Won't be a lot of teeth in that room.
I'm not walking back to my hotel alone.
you get Alistair Clarkson to escort you back there.
I'm pretty thrilled I'm not with you.
Yeah.
You got a target on your back over there, Serge.
We've got the bodyguards on call.
So it looked interesting. It's the biggest loss that a biggest win a team has ever had in the Showdown.
Is that right?
And Adelaide looked much. I mean, I think we were saying this before we came on air about the Melbourne GWS game. This was a bit the same. How much was one team just really good and how much was the other team just really bad, or was it a combination of the both?
Combination of both. I mean, the Melbourne GWS was a bit like Melbourne were awful. Their first 5 minutes were great, and then they were shocking for the rest of the game.
Once GWS started.
GWS, they looked good once they got it going. But again, it's that same thing. A GWS, did they turn a corner and suddenly go up a notch and be, superb, or were Melbourne that ordinary? They let them play. Well,
GWS have a lot of players back, so they look good.
But they were missing Cameron and Patton in the forward line, and they still just. I think at one stage in the first quarter they'd kicked 7 goals out of 8 inside 50s.
Yeah.
They were just kicking goals.
But they were just running off half back with no one.
And just carrying it through the middle, and Melbourne had no idea what to do.
If a team can do that, they're going to win. The Port just looked so bad, I thought. Adelaide looked good, but it was Or, but, it could have been, you never know how much that's the Crows stopping them getting started.
Yeah, well, that's right.
But it looks good. The Crows are weird in that they don't, because they had a few bad losses, and they were really bad losses like the Melbourne one and the game against North. They're sort of not given the cred for a team that's probably been the most consistent and is top of the ladder.
And I think it's
they're going to get a home final.
Yeah.
So they're going to probably win that and go straight through.
To a preliminary. But the thing about Adelaide too is I still reckon, like over here in Melbourne, you look at their team on paper and you think, yeah, it's a good side, but it's not star-studded. I mean,
Yeah, but they've got good structure, like their forward line. No,
Imagine if Dangerfield was still there.
Oh, I know. Although some people argue, including quite a lot of Crows fans, but they might argue.
Oh, they're better off without him.
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
But you never know.
Just like Carlton are better off without Eddie Betts.
And Josh Kennedy. And
Garlett, Jeff Garlett.
Carlton can't score.
No.
If you can get above 80 points against Carlton, you've won. That's all you need to do.
Oh, apparently that Carlton game. I mean, just last week.
That was a terrible game.
People were talking about Levi Casbolt getting $800,000 offers from interstate clubs.
I know.
Oh, if they'd watched that game,
I was talking to a Carlton supporter.
There'd be a black text to go right through.
I was talking to a Carlton supporter before the other day, and they were saying to me, people keep saying, do you be in trouble if we didn't have a Levi? And he's like, what, we'd maybe have one lead? Like, it's just...
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still not convinced about Carlton in any way. I still reckon...
Well, you'd say they were sort of going better than everyone thought this year, but then the last 10 weeks have just made them look like they've gone backwards.
Yeah. So they'd want to have the big turnaround next year and have all their young players really come good because I reckon there's not much other than Cripps. I'm not convinced about Silvani yet. But
I think Silvani's going to be good. I don't mind Silvani. Like, he's young and he seems to be polished.
The thing I do like about Silvani, he runs to the right places. He's always in a good spot. And some young players, I mean, this is like Paddy McCartan at St Kilda. His problem is he can clunk a big mark, but he never seems to be in the right place. He runs to the wrong spots, and that's frustrating for coaches. But Silvani does actually do that.
That sounds like my love life.
What, runs to the wrong places?
Always in the wrong place. One of the things I found moving off football, off AFL, one of the things I enjoyed watching last week very much was the Matildas.
Didn't they?
In the Tournament of Nations. They weren't just really good. They were dominant. They just destroyed sides regularly.
I don't think they'd sort of ever beaten like the USA.
So they beat the USA.
They beat the USA, and then they're coming up against Brazil in the final. Now, I don't know much about Brazilian women's soccer.
They're 8th in the world.
Oh, Brazil, a pretty strong soccer nation.
Yeah, very strong.
At the best of times, and they spanked them.
So they not only spanked, it was a 6-1 win over Brazil in the final, and it was, for me, it was great because it was on in the mornings. Mid-morning, so it was perfect timing.
Perfect time.
Stumble out of bed.
Yeah, coffee with a dash.
With a dash and put it on. And it was great seeing an Australian side dominate on an international display like that. And Sam Kerr, who she actually had been sent out, I think, to play in the AFLW, but she was just absolutely destroyed teams all through this tournament.
Yeah, I didn't watch it live like you did, but I did watch the highlights that night, and they were on fire, I've got to say.
Well, they beat,
unlike the Socceroos.
To give you the context of how well they played, they beat the 8th ranked Brazilians in the final. They beat the world number 1, the USA, 1-0. And then they beat number 6 Japan on their way to the thing 4-2. So it wasn't like they just were lucky or like they really dominated the whole tournament.
The only thing I will ask you,
and they beat the number 1 team on the way there.
The one thing I will ask you though, is this the same Matildas team that recently got beaten by an under 15 boys team?
No, I don't think so.
No.
No.
I think they did.
The exact same one?
Yeah, in a practice match, I think.
Did they?
Yeah.
Well, that was a practice match.
Yeah, true. But no, it was. They were very, very good. And it's good to see because there's a big soccer story brewing this week, which we won't sort of touch on today, we might have a look at later.
On Thursday.
Our good mate John Stenshold from the Financial Review wrote a piece this morning about there's officials from FIFA are arriving in Australia just today to have meetings with the FFA to work out the future of Australian soccer.
Well, they've been happy about the way the governance is going.
It is going to get real messy.
There's a civil war going on in football
war
at the moment.
And as we've said before, I think if you need the most corrupt organisation in world sport to sort things out for you, you really are struggling.
They come out to tell you how to do governance.
Yeah.
We should add just on that, one thing I just thought of that we didn't mention earlier is the cricket war is over.
Oh, it is too.
Your dreams of playing for Australia have
dashed.
Cruelly
dashed by the solidarity of the Players' Union.
Well, it seemed like the Players' Union got most of what they wanted.
I think you'd have to say that they won that battle.
Yeah.
Even though they, Nicholson and Sutherland put on a brave face at the end of it, I reckon the players won that. And you could tell just by the way James Sutherland looked at that presser,
Well, they basically
he'd been bent over.
Well, what had happened is they tested the resolve of the players.
Yeah.
This is the thing. Life is not that complicated if you look at actions over words. Forget what people say, but what they do. Cricket Australia tried numerous times, and this fact is indisputable. They tried to go around the union and go direct to the players. And they say they weren't trying to break the union, but
they're going to individuals.
They're going to, and the top players. They're trying to divide the women from the men, and so they tried to do everything they could to completely get rid of the revenue sharing model and completely get the union out of negotiating. And you'd have to say that if they were its two main things it was trying to do, which it was, they failed on both of them because the players didn't budge and no one budged. They just kept going, and so that's what happened. You ended up with,
and it went on and on because it was a few months ago it was the old who'll blink first, but neither really blinked until it really looked like it was down to the wire last week. If they hadn't knocked it together,
they would have missed out.
The tour of Bangladesh would have been off,
and India, the games against India they had,
and the possible Ashes. And this is where the players were smart, I reckon, is that they kept going. They didn't blink because they knew that Cricket Australia needs the Ashes almost more than the players do.
Yeah.
And
because the players can at least, the top players they can go off to the IPL.
Yeah, they can make bucket loads elsewhere.
But the Cricket Australia, this is that and playing India are their big paydays, so they don't make much out of playing India, Pakistan and
I reckon,
New Zealand.
Oh, exactly. And the whole thing, I reckon, smacks of what has been very common in Australian sport for many, many years is that sort of bloated, overbearing administration making themselves more important than the players. You know? And the cricketers took them on with World Series cricket years ago. And before that, they took it on when I think Bradman was running Cricket Australia. And you've seen it in swimming, cycling, all sorts of sports. And Cricket Australia, they've fallen for it again. So
it was
good luck to the cricketers.
The thing is, this outcome could have been gotten to at the start of the year.
Months ago.
There's nothing in it that's actually that revolutionary that wouldn't have been accepted. So that's the weird thing,
The unfortunate thing is now I'll have to watch the Boxing Day test from outside the fence.
Oh, because you won't be playing?
I won't be playing.
Oh, don't give up.
I could run onto the ground, though. It's only $9,367.
I know. We'll get everyone to put in.
60.
It is a thing where I was worrying that people might have to spend Boxing Day with their families, but that's been dodged.
Yeah, fortunately.
Usain Bolt raced on the weekend. It was his farewell.
The fairy tale is over.
Race, and he lost. He actually came third, won bronze.
Yeah.
He lost to Justin Gatlin, who's been caught before as a drug cheat. Yeah. He's had 2 positive tests in the half. He was suspended he got an 8-year suspension that was then reduced to 4 on appeal. But he won.
How does that work? You've been done for doping. Why do they suddenly halve your penalty on appeal? I don't get it.
Well, I imagine that the appeal court or body thought that the initial suspension was too harsh.
Yeah, and that's what I don't get too. I mean, I'm a bit...
Lock him up.
Well, at least ban them for life.
Yeah.
You know, chain them in a room with Brody Grundy, make them watch Collingwood North.
The problem I have with basically, athletics and, it happens in cycling a lot too and stuff is I occasionally get back in. I want to like these sports and I occasionally get back into it and like someone like Usain Bolt, you really like fall behind and go, this guy's great. And it would just devastate me if I learned he'd been doping all this time.
I tell you,
and that's where you kind of shy to almost getting to care that much because you just go, what's going to happen in 8 years when it comes out that
that's right. I was talking to someone.
Juicing up to his. No, I don't. Yeah. I'm hoping Bolt wasn't, but it's hard to have heroes in a sport where every hero comes out a bit like. Because they were saying about Mo Farah. Yeah. There was a story this week about he missed a drug test and they are not that happy with his excuse of why. And you think, well, for a guy like that, these are the. I mean. Let's hope he's innocent or a bit. You read things like that and it reminds you again. You go, wonder. Oh, well, who am I going to believe in this sport?
Oh, that's right. That's the thing. I mean, after Usain Bolt's second Olympics where he cleaned up everything, I was talking to somebody who was a mad athletics supporter and fan, and they said, look, if Usain Bolt ever tests positive, it will destroy athletics.
Yeah.
But if he continues on and is clean, he will save athletics. Yeah, and he pretty much has. Without him over the last dozen years, who would care?
Well, I keep waiting, though. I already think the Olympics are not what they were, partly because of all the doping.
Yeah, but he transcended track and field. And that helped that he had such a funny personality, such a great personality as well. Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, you'd just be... It's sort of like it's like with cycling when you hear all the doping and then all the motors in bikes and all that. I genuinely find it hard to. Yeah. But then at the same time, then I think, well, maybe I'm just being naive about all the team sports I follow because I know in the NFL they're not very good on drugs.
No, they're all on steroids. In the NFL, it's like you get caught test positive for cocaine. It's like a 3-week suspension or something.
Well, even in the NFL, if you get a PED or like a performance enhancing drug, it can be 4 weeks.
Yeah,
it's not like you're out for life.
No.
And the NBA, and I don't know if this has changed in the new EBA, but the bargaining agreement. But in the old bargaining agreement, a few years ago, you get tested and you could be tested up to 3 times a year, right? But after the third, that was it. You're not allowed to be tested anymore. Like you'd done your test.
Yeah.
So if that happened and you still had a third of the season left or something, do whatever you want.
Let's get on the gear, boys.
Yeah, didn't and you got injured or something and wanted to come back fast.
Well, that's the thing. That's where
a lot of them use it. Yeah. So that was kind of a shame. So anyway, it was sad end to Usain Bolt. And
but did you hear that he was the night of the race? After the race, he was spotted at what they called a London burlesque club.
Oh, really?
Called the Box, Soho.
That sounds like Usain Bolt.
Did you know they still had burlesque clubs?
Well, there's sort of this weird...
Anywhere other than a Baz Luhrmann movie?
Well, there's sort of this weird resurgence of burlesque of various styles. I'm
still not quite sure what the word means, but, we're gonna. Can we do a bit of burlesque?
Well, you can. We might not sell any tickets. We might sell a lot. I'm not sure which way that will go. The NBL have come out and announced. Now, I got to say, the NBL. I'd gotten used to the NBL being inept.
Yeah,
but in recent years, they keep doing really good things, and I keep going, well, when's this? This is not right.
Don't worry about the NBL, they're coming good.
No, they are. This is on a whole range of different measurements. But one of the things that I think is a huge thing that's happened is they announced late last week that 3 of their teams, the Sydney Kings, the Melbourne United, and the Brisbane Bullets, who are newly returned to the league after folding a while ago, are all going to travel to the US in October to play NBA teams during the NBA preseason.
Yeah,
it's going to see the Kings will play. The Sydney Kings will play the Utah Jazz, which has got Joe Ingles and Exum playing in there, the Australians. they're also going to have Melbourne United are going to play Oklahoma City, the Thunder. OKC, which is going to be great. And then the Brisbane Bullets are going to play the Phoenix Suns as well. So this is sort of mid-October this is all happening. That's a great guess for the NBL.
This will be huge. Because, I mean, I can't see either of them winning the matches, but they won't get disgraced either. But just the exposure back here on TV, it'll be just massive.
Yeah.
Even because basketball for years has been big with kids in Australia, and it still is. It's bigger than it's ever been. And every kid follows the NBA religiously. And now they're all in the NBL as well. And I know for a fact that the kids are already talking about these 3 games and can't wait to see them. And there's been talk for a while of bringing an NBA team
out here.
And they said they're going to play at the MCG, which is a bit ridiculous.
I remember that.
That was another one of those things that never really took off.
They promised and never delivered.
I mean, why would you watch a basketball game at the MCG?
At the top of the southern stand. It'll be like watching ants play. Like, it'd be pointless.
Yeah. That will be big, though.
Oh, the thing that's great about it is it's them finally kind of connecting that league, the NBA, that's so dominant to the domestic league.
Yeah.
And making kids go, I could play.
And there's so many Australians who have made it over there now. It used to be. I remember when Andrew Gaze went over and he played for Seton Hall in the college there.
Yeah, that was
big.
And
he did well. And then he was recruited by a couple of teams, but he never really quite made it at the NBA level.
No, he played a few bench roles and stuff.
And then after that, it was, Bogut and what have you. But you could count them on one hand, whereas now there's not only is there a heap of Australians in the NBA, apparently there's a heap in the college system who will probably make it. So.
And if you don't make it in basketball, you can use that background to play footy.
Of course you can.
So it's got the ultimate fallback.
Yeah.
One thing that happened is...
Just on that.
Yeah.
Did you... The Melbourne GWS game, I had a message from someone. Immediately before the opening bounce, they showed Corey Maynard playing in the NBL.
Yeah.
There was the basketball background.
They couldn't help themselves.
Could not help themselves.
Too excited. They just overvalue basketball backgrounds, like not overvalue people's interests in it.
Yeah.
No fan have I ever met ever said to me, that guy used to play basketball.
Yeah, exactly.
No one. It's not what we talk about. But the commentators are just obsessed by it.
And it used to be the basketball background was good footy because they used to say, because it's a 360-degree game, you have to have your wits about you 360 degrees, as you do on the footy field. Wow.
Talking of the NBL, which is suddenly being run like a professional sporting league, something that is not being run like a professional sporting league is the rugby union in Australia, and for quite some time.
What is the latest? I'm so over these.
Well, it keeps getting funnier because the Melbourne Rebels, they have done something interesting on the end of last week, where the private owners have basically transferred their license of the Melbourne Rebels to the Victorian Rugby Union. Now, what's interesting about that is I think the Victorian government have ponied up some funds for that to happen, to buy out the owners. And what it means is that it makes it much harder for the Australian Rugby Union to cut the Rebels, because they were sort of waiting to see if they could basically take over the Rebels' license and just cancel it. But now it's a lot harder because it's owned by the VRU. Now, the other thing is they didn't tell the ARU they were doing it. So the ARU didn't know who owned one of their clubs briefly.
Keystone Cops.
Yeah, so they sort of found out. So it means what happens is it means that the ARU had the opportunity in the past to buy back the Rebels from the consortium and then just shut them down.
Yeah, but I still can't see how this is going to pan out. I mean, when is the next...
Well, now they're making a decision at the moment around the Force, but it looks like the thing about the Force is they're going to fight it right through to arbitration, and then which is happening at the moment, and then right through to even the Supreme Court and everything. So that's going to keep happening.
When does the new season start? I mean, I think this one's just finished.
Mid next year, yeah.
But,
the thing that's interesting about it is this just sums up to me rugby union is the ARU said they'd been blindsided by the Rebels when it came out because they did not know that they had transferred the ownership. Melbourne people say, well, we tried to make contact with the ARU. But
the phone was off the hook?
The fax. If their fax isn't working, if they're not manning their fax. But the Rebels have also said that they have denied that the ARU have any rights anyway to sign off on this transfer. So whether they knew or not is irrelevant because they have no power. VRU, Victorian Rugby Union President Tim North, who is a QC.
Oh, of course he is.
As well as two other QCs advising the option, said it was sufficient. So I love there's just everyone involved is a QC.
Of course they are. It's like, I mean, the only people who are going to make any money out of or do anything are the lawyers. But most of the...
But in rugby union, everyone's either a doctor or a lawyer.
A doctor, a lawyer, or a merchant banker.
Yeah.
You know? That's just the way it works.
So that's what's looking like. We're going to have a decision on the force at some point, but even if that happens, that's going to be a fight.
I'll end up in court.
And now it's going to be a lot harder for them to shut down the Rebels, even if they want to. Not that anyone in Melbourne would notice if the Rebels were shut down.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you've got to say rugby union in Australia is maybe it's not dying, but it's sort of on its knees.
Yeah.
And it has been for ages.
It's retreated back to its traditional heartland of parts of Sydney and Queensland.
Private schools. And
the
fact, and I think we mentioned this before, the fact that the Wallabies are no good.
Yeah,
whereas back in the days we were winning World Cups.
And their crowd for the Super Rugby in Australia are just abysmal.
Yeah.
They're getting... it makes GWS look like huge.
Yeah. Oh, it makes an NRL game look big and we laugh at their crowds.
Manchester City's soccer star, this was an interesting one that came up on the weekend. Now, Raheem Sterling, who plays for Manchester City, now he earns $300,000 a week.
A week, right.
So to give you an idea of the sort of money he's on.
Hey, he's probably paying $100,000 a week tax, though.
Oh, yeah, the poor guy. How does he make ends meet? Now, apparently, they were all doing their pre-season, you know how all the soccer clubs out of the English Premier League all go and tour around the world as part of their pre-season and raise a lot of money. He apparently, while over there, had sex with a $5,000 a night hooker in the US and then refused to pay her the full fee. Started to argue about it.
He wanted to negotiate.
Yeah, and on top of that, he sent a string of angry WhatsApp messages haggling about the cost. Before finally getting a Manchester City fixer to come in and hand $2,500
so you only
to the prostitute. And someone said, Raheem may be a millionaire, but he is a rude cheapskate. He seemed to assume that he would be able to just sleep with me and not pay, said the woman.
Oh, well, there you go.
It is amazing no matter how much money some people have. Who would have thought that the soccer star sleeping with prostitutes has no class?
But who would have thought that an EPL player on $300,000 a week needs to pay for it?
Well, one needs to pay for it, but two risks this coming out like it has.
Yeah, but it's not like he's risking his career.
For $2,500.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's not great.
No.
Like, sponsors aren't fond of this sort of stuff.
No, but if you're making $300K a week, you probably don't really care, you know? But
that is the thing. If you get this insane amount of money, it's a bit like the Bernard Tomic thing. It does make caring about things harder.
Oh, true. Of course it does. But I'll tell you what, I'll be watching Raheem Sterling with a bit more interest now. Yeah.
It is amazing, that you would get into that sort of thing. Yeah,
maybe.
The whole mindset about that whole series of events, starting with having sex with the prostitute, just. None of that story to me logically makes any sense.
No. Maybe he took a dive.
So anyway, that's been plastered. Also, what is it with people always putting things in messages and emails?
and social media.
leaving a trail.
An electronic trail, you know. WhatsApp messages haggling over the cost.
That's it, kids. Don't put it in writing if you're going to haggle over. If you're going to haggle over the cost with a high class escort, don't put it in writing.
Just do what that traditionally. Just leave the cash on the on the chest of drawers.
These are good advice from Uncle Serge. Remember when the Essendon players set that dwarf on fire? I mean, how could you forget the St Kilda players? Sorry, not Essendon. Apologies, Essendon done enough.
They're on the gear.
remember when St Kilda players did that, and then I think was it Lee Montagna got into an email argument with the dwarf entertainer, saying you weren't any good, and I was like, once again in writing from all the say, and it's like John Coates put in writing about the cancer patient who was the employee who was having chemotherapy, and he wrote, "I'm not running a sheltered workshop. Tell her to get out in the real world." And you're like, you put this in writing. This is the thing. I'm not excusing their behaviour, but it's an extra points for stupidity.
Yeah, the best one about...
Would you ever think to put anything like that in writing?
Oh, never. I mean, every time... I've ever set fire to a dwarf or whatever. But the best thing about that story...
Remember not to leave a paper trail.
...was Lee Montagna, saying to him in writing, mate, you weren't much good anyway, as if that was reason enough for us to torture you.
Let that be a lesson to all you entertainers.
Yeah. It better be funny, mate. Or there'll be tortures.
Anthony wrote in, taking the advice of AFL coaches, at work I decided to play on the edge.
Oh, good.
Unfortunately, this resulted in me being fired. I informed them I was a good bloke, but they didn't care. My dismissal is going to tribunal, and I was hoping if you and Serge could give me a character reference. P.S. I'm not worried about losing my job, as I have a basketball background. I hear that's pretty handy these days.
He's covered about 8 jokes in that one question.
I like Anthony. Anthony's got good work there. It is amazing. I'm constantly in my head. I always watch when I'm watching any footy or reading all the stuff that happens in footy. The stuff that can happen in football that you could never do in the real workplace.
Yeah.
And it's seen as normal. Like even when Jared McVeigh got pecked on the cheek by...
see the AFL, there's some talk they want to make that illegal.
But you couldn't do that in any other workplace.
No.
Like, you can't just lean over mid-meeting and kiss someone on the cheek.
Walk up to Simon from accounts. Go,
Simon from accounts.
You've been doing a good job, pal, and plant one right in his cheek.
See how that goes. Because I know lots of people at work don't even like being hugged. Oh, no. Even if they like you, they don't want to be hugged.
Can't hug.
But I get that. Who wants to hug everyone all the time?
The only thing worse...
You're either a hugger or you're not.
Yeah, the only thing worse is the bloke at work who wants to give you a fist bump. That's the new thing. Fist bump. Mate, you try a fist bump, you get a jumper punch.
You're not really up with the fist bump.
No, not up with the fist bump.
Matthew Holland wrote, after David King's philosophical discussion on SEN that Melbourne had to trade Jesse Hogan to acquire Jake Lever, will the AFL be introducing concussion tests for the AFL media? They do spin some wonderful...
Oh, I mean, sometimes you see... And we bag these ex-footballers in the media, and we did it at the top of this podcast. But you just know that half the time they've got to fill airtime and space, especially on SEN, because they just talk about the same thing all day.
Yeah.
But Kingy was going out on a limb there. And the other one, somebody suggested the other day that Melbourne could trade Clayton Oliver for Jake Lever. He would be the last person that Melbourne would trade.
Yeah, that's right.
But... Yeah, the concussion tests for the media.
See, the other thing is, what these people seem to be missing is you try and keep your good players.
Yeah.
Like, that's how it works. Carlton proved that trading away your best players doesn't actually work.
Does not work.
On the hope you're getting someone back, It is amazing. But I kind of feel in two things, because one... But you and I, through this podcast and me writing my reviews and stuff, you churn out a lot of content, I guess, or whatever. Yeah. And so I know there's always a temptation to fill space, and these guys are presented as experts, so they have to, kind of always. But there's also your pride in going, and I mean, I'm not a journo or an expert, so I don't have to worry about this, and but you're kind of also going, if I say just stupid stuff, like, people are going to come back and realise I just say stupid stuff all the time. But it's like it doesn't bother them. It's like there's the media sort of, because they don't get critiqued that much themselves, they sort of have the memory of a goldfish.
Yeah, well, that's right. And if they're not, they don't critique themselves, but they do like making themselves part of the story a lot of the time too. Well, there's a fair bit of that.
The greatest one this year was, remember when Robbo came out and said about... Was it Hanbury? Hanbury said all those people who claim that Hanbury not drinking was his, now that Hanbury'd come good, was his problem, really need to take a good hard look at himself.
Was it Hanbury or Kieran Jack?
No, it was Hanbury.
It was Hanbury.
And because he used to be a big boozer and he stopped. So Robbo wrote this piece when Hanbury came back and said it was really responsible of all the, all those people who claimed you need to get back on the drink, to get good at footy again. Anyway, someone on Twitter screenshot that comment from Robbo with Robbo's comment from a few months ago where he questioned Hanbury stopping drinking as being the reason he... And that to me just, not to single out Robbo alone, but that sums up so much of the media. The great one this week was where someone wrote the story, I can't remember who it is, about was Malthouse, because he caught up with Eddie, coming back to Collingwood.
That's right.
And then it led to Eddie having to come out and say...
And going nuts, yeah.
It's absolutely not true and the story's rubbish. So that led to a bunch of other stories reporting on Eddie saying it's not true. Yeah. So you kind of create a 3-day story over something that was never true and never a thing. It's great.
I know. I mean, they're good. The footy media is good at sort of, as I say, discussing themselves, bringing the whole thing up and stretching out a story beyond its natural shelf life. Yeah.
But we all read it, so, we're all part of the problem, Serge. Kane Durkin...
Be part of the solution, not the problem.
Oh, I don't know about that. It's a lot harder being part of the solution.
It's not like one of those stupid things that people put on Facebook and then you block them.
Being part of the problem is so much easier. That's what no one ever says.
Yeah, of course it is.
I like to stand back and not notice the problem or pretend it's nothing to do with me. Kane Durkin wrote in, simple one for us this week. Where should I get my tattoo when Richmond win the flag?
Oh.
Well, if you really believed in them, Kane, you'd get it now.
Yeah. And what you would do, Kane, you would get your whole face done black with the yellow stripe, David Bowie style, from the top right-hand top of your forehead down to your left chin.
Serge, no one has ever regretted a face tattoo.
Never.
There's nothing better.
I know. I mean, you've got Such Is Life tattooed around your neck.
I've never been a tattoo person, but I don't hate tattoos. It's one of those things that I've never thought of.
Did you see?
It's never been a thing I've even considered.
No, neither. But did you see the guy who was the semi-streaker at the MCG yesterday? His shirt was ripped open by the security guards when they grabbed him. He had tattooed across his chest, "Live fast or die trying." You weren't quite quick enough to get across the MCG.
Imagine, what's the thought process that leads you to thinking, I want that phrase on me forever.
Yeah.
That sums me up as a person.
And that phrase being the title of an album by 50 Cent, the rapper.
We've all been moved to, want to get something by 50 Cent tattooed on our body.
This is a true story. I once saw a bloke walking down Chapel Street in Melbourne and he had the homemade tattoo across his forehead.
Really?
It said Guns N' Roses across his forehead. And I thought, my first thought was, this bloke, the only way he'd ever see it was in the mirror when it would say, Seasorton Snug.
That's right. You don't even get to read it. Now we've got to award a T-shirt.
We do.
Who
do you like?
Well, I was going to give it to Anthony for his playing on the edge at work.
No,
I think
that.
He's put a bit of effort into that one, Anthony. So,
Anthony Papa Giorgio, I think.
And we've also got a bunch of people who've won T-shirts in the last few weeks. We've got them all in the mail going out to you. So
nice
if you've won one in the last few weeks, you'll be getting one soon. They're all in the mail or on their way, which is good. Proof that we actually do. We do get around to sending them out.
Yeah, no, it does happen.
Won't happen overnight.
But it will.
But it will happen.
Before the end of the season, hopefully.
So if you want to support our podcast, go on to titusoreilly.com and there's the support tab there. We'd love to have you on board. If you want to get tickets to our shows around Australia, you go to frontiertouring.com/Titus O'Reilly. If you Google enough, you'll find that. Yes. Tickets are selling fast for that.
Looking forward to seeing you all.
And if you haven't already, if you go onto iTunes and rate us or leave a comment, that's always much appreciated. And we will see you on Thursday.
Later this week.